Welcome to Journeys of Empowerment. I'm your host, Michiel Sujit Rijt. And this podcast is all about amplifying people empowerment. We all strive to create impact, not just for ourselves, but for others. Yet setbacks, uncertainty and adversity often get in the way. So how do we turn struggle into strength and purpose into action? This show brings you real stories and raw experiences from role models who faced challenges, embraced transformation and stepped into their power. Because empowerment isn't a solo journey, it's a ripple effect. It all starts with a choice, your choice to listen, learn and take action. Tune in and start amplifying your impact. Before we dive in, a quick shout out to our sponsor Neotopia, the go-to partner for leaders who want to turn behavior change into lasting impact. Leading change isn't easy. You've probably faced it, resistance, disengagement and the weight of old habits that just won't shift. Let's be honest, change left to chance rarely works. That's why Neotopia developed a proven practical methodology to help leaders create real results, where culture shifts and teams take initiative. It all starts with the awareness workshop, where you will uncover why most behavior change efforts fail and what actually works, and hands-on framework to make change stick, and how to lead teams that step up, not just show up. When done right, change becomes a catalyst, saving time, energy and building the kind of culture people want to be part of. Curious? Book your spot for the awareness workshop at neotopia.nl and experience it yourself. What if we could step into someone else's reality? Not just metaphorically, but literally. In today's episode I sit down with Alex Tavassoli, founder of Enliven Empathy, who's pioneering the use of virtual reality to foster empathy in some of society's toughest spaces, from diversity training to domestic violence prevention. Alex's journey is deeply personal and powerfully professional. We explore how his own experiences with trauma and family shaped his mission, and how he is using technology to help others see, feel and understand perspectives they might never encounter otherwise. Together we dive into how VR unlocks deeper understanding and emotional connection, why empathy, not policy, is often the missing key in D&I work, the balance between family life and purpose-driven innovation, and how small acts of empathy can transform even the most painful conflicts. This conversation is a reminder that empathy isn't weakness, it's a radical power. Let's dive in.
Yeah, let's go.
Alex Tavassoli. Am I pronouncing it right?
Yes, Tavassoli.
Tavassoli, yeah, Tavassoli.
It's actually Tavassoli.
Tavassoli. Beautiful name. Welcome to Journeys of Empowerment podcast. I'm so glad that you're here today. And
thanks, man.
We had already a little laugh before, because before we started, we had a little chat and we were talking about, and we were testing the microphones. And then all of a sudden, when Alex got the microphone in front of him, there's something funny happening inside. You see it also in his eyes. And we filmed it. Maybe I'm going to use that snippet.
You filmed it? Okay.
Yeah, I did. And because normally when you go to a festival, techno, you love techno, right?
Yep.
And there is something that you do.
Yeah, so I like to break up patterns, and the pattern there in general is like people are really internally focused, and they're focused on the music, on the stage, whatever. So it's everyone has the same beat that they're moving to, and then I throw some in there. So yeah,
the last one,
yes, that's everything like. Perfectly on the beat, so people start enjoying it. They start turning around, like, what is this? Who's doing this? And then they start liking it, and we start also connecting with people. And I have some other ADHD friends I really connect with well. They're with me, and then we're a group of 3, and totally changing the energy there. Yeah,
I love it. And but okay, for the listeners. First, let's start with you and the here and the now. Yes. Alex, who are you and what are you doing?
Yeah. So,
what are you up to, buddy?
yeah. What am I up to? I'm on a mission with Enliven. We infuse empathy into learning and training, education, family interventions through virtual reality technology. We allow you to put yourself in the shoes of someone else and experience their reality. And it's game technology based, so you interact, you're really there. Within 30 seconds, you step into the shoes of someone else and experience something that you have never experienced before. And that's how we want to create a better world with more empathy, a safer world for children, for adults. That's the mission we're on.
Wow. And when did you start the company?
Well, it's really a personal mission. I started it 2014, actually.
Yeah.
So it's been over a decade.
Truly pioneering.
Yes. It was difficult because, at the early days, we had to demo what virtual reality even is. And even now today, for so many of users stepping into our VR experience, it's their first time. It's their first time in at least game technology, virtual reality. Most of them say, oh, I've done this 360 video thing, or I've done the roller coaster in VR, but this is the first time. So it's crazy. The technology is there for such a long time, and for so many people, it's still the first experience.
So how did you explain at first what VR is all about? Because if we can't imagine what we have to imagine, it's always, and we don't have any metaphors which is helping us. How did you do that?
Yeah, that was the crazy thing. Like when you start pitching your company, you want people to understand it right away, right? But I had to first explain the technology. This is virtual reality, and believe me, this is how it works.
Believe you, this is how it works.
This is how it works. So mainly it was about taking along the technology, which was back then a big PC, like this giant computer, gaming computer on wheels. We would take it with. You had these lighthouses you have to set up for. Sometimes I would. I'm originally from Iran, and my passport still says Ali Tavassoli. So you can imagine me rolling up at the Dutch Department of Justice with this big flight case and two things like these cokers that look like bazookas. It was crazy. I would enter the Hague, the big office with this setup. Yeah, it was something.
How did that made you feel?
Sometimes like a threat. People like the security would eyeball me. Certainly,
really?
Yeah, of course, yeah. It's pretty natural, right? So even now on airports, I recently had an experience also coming back. Like no one got checked, but we got randomly selected with my family, and we came back from Spain.
Randomly.
Yeah, randomly. We came back from Spain. Not knowing my name, you could have said like. Could be Spanish. I get that often from people. You Italian, Spanish, but still, we got randomly selected. I think also because my father-in-law was with me, and he doesn't look as Spanish with this beard and stuff. So, yeah, the random selection is a real thing.
Yeah, and when we go back to the name of your company, Enliven Empathy, the aim is helping people to imagine and putting them in the shoes of people who are experiencing, adversity or discrimination or, right?
Yes. It's often experiencing the victim's perspective.
Yeah.
But it ranges from domestic violence to complex divorces, to discrimination, or being a woman in a workplace. Basically anything, neurodivergent, anything you can imagine, we couldn't experience and understand before is now available through this technology.
That's interesting. And let's put it to the test. If we are able to picture what people are going to experience when they put on the VR technology, and what are they going to experience? What are they going to see? Can you?
Yeah,
that's interesting. If we are able to tell it in such a way that people can almost see what's happening.
Okay. Yeah. Now close your eyes. Well, imagine you're standing in front of a mirror.
Yes.
And all of a sudden you embody a woman. You look down, you as a man have breasts. You are smaller than you usually are, the height difference. And you're standing in front of a mirror. You have to make a decision what to wear today to office. And we as men can't imagine what it's like for women to make these decisions in the morning before they go. And if I dress this way, this is what I'm getting. Or should I wear this because the last time someone says this about my dress, or the color of it. It could be anything, right? Red color, I'm getting remarks, a little bit too short, this remark. So going back to the last time you experienced this, just this is already such a powerful experience for us men. Mm-hmm. We cannot imagine.
No.
And then the other thing is we put tall men in the perspective of being smaller in general, right? So they're in a meeting, they're standing with colleagues, and they feel the height difference, the dynamic of being the smaller person in a group for the first time in their life. So that basically sums us up. And then going back to the social experiences, imagine being as small as children are, right? The doorknob is their height.
Yes.
And we can't imagine the impact of parents who are twice as big as their children, standing in front of them, being angry. The impact of that alone. We can't imagine, because someone being twice our size would have to be, it doesn't exist. So it would be a giant. And we don't put ourselves back in that perspective of being the child looking up to this enormous person who you love, who's everything for you. And then when they're angry, they're yelling at you, they're even aggressive, or you fear their physical aggressiveness coming up. Mm-hmm. What kind of fear that is for children?
It helps people also to become more aware about their own actions. I can imagine it's an eye opener for parents who are seeing this from the perspective of a child.
Yes, and it's so powerful that even professionals working on the topic of domestic abuse would, after experiencing it, say, I had no idea that this was the impact on children, on my children. In the domestic violence experience, there's the fight starts downstairs, like in a lot of Dutch homes, starts downstairs. And so professionals working with families would tell us, I had no idea that this was the impact I had, yelling, because we all do sometimes. And she had no idea that being downstairs had this much of an impact on her children being in a bedroom playing.
Yeah, it's well, you accomplished the challenge, because at least I can see through your eyes, or start imagining what kind of impact that would have without knowing what you're going to see, and then all of a sudden you see it from a different perspective. Yeah. It's profound. It's profound.
Yes, and it really shakes people up. As I told you, I like shaking people up, right? So we just starting when we started out already in the first phases, you do pilots, and one of the pilots was on offenders of domestic abuse with a probation office, reclassering.
Yes.
And these men would break into tears, putting off the VR headset. And it was the very start of the technology, right? It has evolved since then. They would put off the VR headset and then look away to not show me they had tears. And one of them also, there's so many examples. One of them, for instance, said, I had no idea what we're doing to our children. It's the two people you love most in front of you, being physical towards each other, fighting. And it's crazy. It's the two people you love most, he said, with tears in his eyes.
Of course.
It was so touching. And then we knew we had something really good.
Wow. And before we go into who are you and where are you at the moment in your stage of life, what is the big dream of Enliven Empathy?
Well, after this decade of doing the work with many stages and ups and downs, I think there's one thing that we can, with all certainty of the world, say is that any training and any classroom is better with this technology, is better with this immersive technology that puts you in the shoes of someone else, because we have all kinds of ways to ignite empathy in our classrooms, in our trainings. Everyone does it in a certain way, either to a video, audio, whatever. But it's clear as day that any of these trainings, any classroom where they are training social workers, is more powerful when you put them in the shoes of the client you're preparing them to serve, right? So
I can imagine. And for now, for the last question for this part, which is really interesting, is who are your ideal customers? Because I hear, I think, it's not that I heard, but I think corporates and environments, but also, instances.
Social work organizations
who are involved in domestic abuse and domestic violence and cases. So, but who are the type of clients you're working with? It's not about the who, or it's about more the type of clients. Yeah.
It benefits so many occupations already, right? So it's in training social workers. It's being used in social workers and their interventions with families, education, the future social workers, but also more broadly in education, because we also offer them these inclusion experiences, right? So really broadly in the social space, I would say, although the work that we do for corporates is also social impact, right? So, and then the corporates. So we have this amazing three hour training program, and it's a continuous journey. We have many follow-up journeys in there, but the 3 hour intro to inclusion is what we call it. Immersive
intro into inclusion. Great.
Yes.
Great.
Immersive intro to inclusion.
Immersive. Intro to
you're
inclusion.
Being immersed into inclusion and everything. It's
so we send it to. Wow. Yeah. I'm not going to be political today. But you know which name I had in mind. So we send a set to.
At some point we will. Yes.
At
some point we will.
Okay.
No, because also what we do there differently is we break the resistance to D&I that is typically seen in organizations with the training and how we structure it. It's empathy first, it's also the training itself is designed with empathy. We include everyone. Everyone feels heard. Everyone has a voice. We have examples that address everyone, even the white man in the room, because it's only together through, doing this work together that we achieve inclusion. It's not. Of course. It's not true.
If it's not together,
blaming and shaming.
It's not included. Inclusion will ever be inclusion, right? And
yes.
This really resonates. Breaking resistance through empathy. This is powerful, buddy. This is really powerful.
Yes, and we really manage it because the clients that we serve are large tech corporates that are predominantly white male audiences that join our session, and it's rated by them 4.5 out of 5.
Wow!
So they also come in. They are turned. I see also, I've been to many of these trainings, certainly in the starting phases myself, and I've seen a lot of them turn. They came in, they say, someone signed me up for this, someone thought I needed this, and then they stuck around. They had a conversation with us afterwards, and I would check. We have this anonymous survey, but time frame wise, I can check if there's a 2-star rating or a 3-star, but they wouldn't. They would rate it at least a 4 or 5.
Wow.
So,
and before we dive into the path of the 10-year entrepreneurship, who is Alex at this moment? You are.
Yeah.
Why?
Who am I? So besides dedicated on my mission, I'm really conscious of the decisions I make business-wise because I favor family above everything.
Yes, that's
right?
beautiful.
So
beautiful.
I've said I want to impact the world. I want to have a lot of things I want to achieve with the company, but not at the cost of my children. I want to see them grow up, so I've always been consciously making decisions around them, and still. And I have this beautiful son who is 7, Leon, and recently blessed with a daughter, Lina, who's just 3 months old.
Oh, 3 months old.
Yes, and married. I've been with my wife since 20 years ago. So we met when I was 17, got together when I was 18, and then ever since we've been together. She's the same age, so she's been going through the same thing.
Beautiful.
Last 20 years.
Same stages and together, and we will dive into Mariam. Her name is Mariam, eh?
Yes.
And we will dive into, because we had a pre-conversation, and she really made you pause and think and reflect, and we will get into that later.
Yes.
Because it made it a profound impact also on me, hearing that story. And I can imagine 10 years pioneering with, a background not coming from here. I can imagine, I don't want to assume, but I can imagine that was an easy road. Very easy, right? It was a straight line from A to B, and it was not messy in the middle. And
sky
high.
Sky high from day one. No, so yes, it is difficult. Certainly when you're focused on impact first, it is a difficult road, as you know.
What makes it difficult? What makes it difficult? Everybody's talking now these days about impact first, and we even in SaaS business we learn from Winning by Design. We learn it's all about recurring impact leads to recurring revenue. So it's everybody saying impact, and still when we're talking about impact focused business, there is something why it's different. Why is it difficult?
I think it's summed up to, I found something I want to change in the world, something that I feel strongly needs change. And it's not a business case I came across. It's not it's not like I'm a professional working in D&I and I found we have to change this. No, I personally experienced the lack of empathy growing up, experiencing domestic abuse myself at home and outside, facing a lot of discrimination, experiencing the impact of the lack of empathy on children, certainly, and when we get adults, it's not much different. Myself, I was so dedicated to prevent others from the same, and it started with preventing other children from domestic abuse. When we reached the parents and we managed to impact them, show them the impact on their children, that would change their mind. I also imagined if my parents were to see this experience when we were children, that would have changed their behavior, because you just don't realize. A lot of us, there's no bad intentions. No one is evil. Not many are evil, let's say. So it's just bad habits. It's just a lack of understanding of the impact. We don't think about these things. So profoundly, I found this is something I need to change, and then finding a business case for it, having the professionals realize that this is a problem they need a solution for, and we have the solution, that makes it extra difficult. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And was impact entrepreneurship the only challenge you had to face as an entrepreneur?
No, certainly not.
Not that it's enough, eh? Not that it's not enough. Eh?
It's not.
It's challenging. As an entrepreneur,
not.
An entrepreneur is challenging. A pioneer, so pioneering your way forward, explaining what VR technology is all about. Impact driven is a challenge. This in total is already challenging enough. Yet I know from our previous conversations, it wasn't an easy road at all. Yeah. Besides those challenges.
Yeah, so growing up in a household where there is abuse, where there are there's depression, PTSD, because I found it important to state my father is this beautiful man, right? Beautiful, so he's artistic, so he's gentle, he's also grew up in a beautiful family. My grandfather was not abusive at all. He was a beautiful man. My father and my aunt, his sister, never knew violence. War made him violent, right? Growing up in first the Iranian Revolution, then the attack of Iraq, and defending his country. He's a hero who fought for his country, didn't blink even once, and went to the front lines. Saw the most horrible things. Do you want me to elaborate what the horrible things are, or is that enough? Because he really saw the most horrible things you can imagine, right? From young men, 16-year-olds, jumping on minefields to make the way for the attack at night, for instance, or his best friend, who's one of my brothers, carries his name, dying in his arms, bleeding to death in his arms, his last breath. So this turned my father to the violent man he was. And that's why I always have respected him, because it's really easy to say this is a bad person or this is a violent man. And I had that label growing up myself. I became violent myself. So it's not that easy, but I do pride myself for breaking that cycle for my family. So this is a struggle in between building this company, all these personal habits, every wrong habit you can imagine I would have, from food to how I dealt with situations, aggression, mindset. That was a complete journey on its own. Staying true to the positive, happy person that I always used to be in the face of adversity. Because my father has had his adversities, and his reaction to it was always depression, and also showing us that he was struggling. And I found also other people to look up to in that sense, right? So my father-in-law, for instance, he dealt with it completely differently. He said, when I come home, this is who I want to be for my family. My family doesn't need to know I'm struggling with at work or whatever. So that's one of the key traits I learned from him that changed me. Because what we see from our parents is our reality, right? Is the normal for us.
Yes.
And then you come outside and you see other things and how people treat each other, how husband and wife live, that you can be loving towards each other, right? So none of that were in my parents' marriage. I had to see it, that it could also be this way. I could choose this path, or I could choose the loving path, like simple things like calling your wife honey, instead of her name. That also helps. These little things.
It's a little thing, but big impact.
Yeah.
What you just mentioned. And may I say that I really admire your openness, and also your empathy towards your father, because it takes a lot to understand the context where it came from, and then, although the outcome for you was violence towards also you and in the family, but also to take in consideration what led him to this path of anger and violence, and to try to understand. That's, for me, it's a proof of empathy, that you are able to see that also from a different perspective. Was it already at a young age that you saw that, or did that grew later?
That's a good question. I think I had to grow into that, right? So I was never the person to really blame my parents for who they were. At some point, the rebellion age, you get some anger of why these things are. But what also really helped me is this journey of working on a solution. Mm-hmm. Because I learned so much. And realized so many things in the process. A lot of things that I struggle with that are due to my past, which helped me a lot. But I guess, did I see this as a child? I think I had an understanding. I knew my father's background. I knew how tough it must have been. I didn't know the full picture. Like his life, his life is a movie on its own. It's not one with a great ending, because he's currently also physically and mentally struggling still. But yeah, really powerful story.
Mm. And luckily, what I also hear is that you found while growing up, but also in your environment, you found sort of role models like your father-in-law, who gave you also a different perspective, learned that, hey, you can also do it differently, see it differently, acting differently, putting on a sort of switch and like, okay, but now I'm in my family environment. So that's also profound. That made a profound impact on you, and also in the trajectory to, well, maybe even healing.
Yeah,
right. Seeing a different perspective.
Yeah. So on the personal mission and professional level, it was the influence of my father, who always taught me, do something that you're passionate about, because he couldn't. He had to give up all of his, passions to join the war, to then care for his family, etc. And do something that matters, because he also sacrificed his life to doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. So these two things are what connects the work that I do today, right? So it's one, my passion, game technology, animation, and the technology behind the solution, and then the second is I knew, even when I had a football career, etc., even then my focus was on the good I could do for the world, not being a celebrity football player. And on family side, it was certainly a big role model, my father-in-law, who taught me these little things of, not showing your family how depressed you are, even if you are, how difficult things are. When you come home, you laugh, you are their energy. You show them that everything is good, even if it's not, right? So that's something I live by. And the other thing, the smaller, gestures of thinking about they are still happily together as well, even though, everyone has their own,
of course,
ups and downs, but
that's life.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They're still together as well, and happily so.
And this was family life, but also growing up in the Netherlands. When did you came to the Netherlands?
I was 8 years old.
8 years old.
Yeah, when we moved to the Netherlands, my father came a year before us. He fled the country 94. We came 95. And it was, I think, around 8 to 12 months in the AZC, in the asylum. In the asylum, and then we came to live in a small village in the Netherlands, North Limburg.
Oh.
Yep.
As
one of the very few families of a migrant background, you can imagine what that was like.
Yes and no. That's interesting. Yes, due to the fact that I am now surrounded by many in many environments where there is a lot of stories about how people experience growing up and being there with a background of migration, refugee, and but it's only, well, it started when I met Sasha Martina, you know very well, and and through her eyes and through the beautiful work she is doing and the mission she's on with House of Inclusion, and through that work I started to understand, hey, because I grew up being adopted and grew up in Beeldhoven, Amersfoort and New York, and didn't go through the same, although having obviously different genetic markers, didn't go through that whole. So yes and no, I have to be honest in my answer. Yes and no. Yes, because I love to learn a lot about the stories people went through, but not necessarily recognize it myself. Yet, somewhere it feels slightly more familiar than I thought before that. Because growing up here in the Netherlands, from age 6 months old, I always thought I was one of them in my environment where I grew up. You don't want to be different.
Yeah.
And slightly, of course, I was looking different. Never been really deliberately excluded. Yet, more and more, I start recognizing that, hey, but Michiel, be honest.
There were some things.
Actually feel one of them? Although not being excluded deliberately, it's more resonating than. But you were growing up there, and what did you face? What kind of challenges did you had?
So, carrying the name Ali, there's a mark on you of Muslim. So. You're either a Turk or a Moroccan. I don't look like a Moroccan, so I was always the Turk, even if I'm Iranian from background. So hearing the slur, conquer Turk, cancer Turk, go back to your own country, that was like basically every day. And then there was a lot of picking on us. Bullying behavior. I remember this one time in primary school when we came home. My little brother was crying. He was beat up. And then my father said, and we were gentle kids. We grew up in Iran. I hadn't had a fight in my life. We were raised really protected. So we wouldn't even go to the streets to get in a fight in that way. And I was the most happy kid you can imagine. I was laughing. I was smiling. Every picture of me as a child you see, I'm laughing. So it was a complete turnaround from our experience when we went to school and then we got bullied, we got pushed around, we got we got called names the entire time and had to figure out our identity. We were embarrassed for our parents. My father had this beard and then wanted to see him at school because I would get remarks on it, etc. And so that day we came home. My little brother was crying, and then my father said, "What were you two doing then? What were you two doing when he was beat up? You're the three. You're with three. There's the three of you. No one can mess with you if you stand together." And that's the day when we started fighting back. And then throughout the youth, it was always like, when someone pushes you and tells you to go the F back to your country. You can't tell them to go back to their country, right? So there's kind of like no other way than to start pushing back and start beating back. And then all of a sudden we were the violent, aggressive ones. And that stuck throughout my entire youth. Like I would fight everywhere, on the streets, school. I would come back, one of the little brothers was pushed around, beaten again, or... and I was the stronger one because when I was little, my uncles would wrestle with me, the Iranian wrestle. So I had this huge advantage. I never lost a fight. I would just throw them on the ground, and then I could also
see a
fight.
little victorious.
Yes, yeah, that did change a lot growing up because it's a different experience growing up being beaten up the entire time, besides excluded, discriminated, bullied. And it helps to look back and say, at least we didn't get beaten. And it stopped because we got stronger, and, besides me, the others would go to kickboxing, and they would start to fight back. And then at age 18, they knew not to mess with us. So basically around that, it stopped, and just sometimes someone who didn't know us would start something, and they would find out. And the funny thing is, a lot of the bullies later become our friends.
No.
Yes.
How is that even possible? How is it possible how do you learn to allow people becoming friends who were once your bullies? How does that work?
It's it just it just went that way. I think understanding, we had that understanding of, they're not bad people. Mm-hmm. They just were ignorant young people, right? So when we were 12, I think the age difference was around 2 to 4 years. So when we were 12, they were 16, and they were bigger, so they could bully us around. They could call us names. But then we grew up, and then as the age gap becomes less impactful, you start to level. And then when they realized like they can't bully us anymore, etc., it just grew into suddenly one of the friends was talking to each other, and then we were chilling with it. Because actually one of them was the bigger brother of a friend of mine. So that's how it went.
Wow, beautiful. That's I think, but also here, but I hear constantly through your whole journey is empathy. Always trying to also think from the other perspective. Yeah. And because I think what helps also becoming friends with your bullies is trying to understand their perspective and where it came from, right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's unacceptable. Yes. Bullying is unacceptable.
Exactly.
And it still is unacceptable, yet allowing yourself to see the other person and the other perspective, maybe it makes it more understandable, or it
certainly is. And I think one of the reasons why me and my team being able to design this amazing program is because it's empathy also in the design process, and understanding, having these people around me still. I have a lot of white male who are being targeted by these programs, and although we differ on a lot of topics, and we argue, I do understand their perspective. Mm. So I can put their perspective in our programs. That's basically why it's, I think, one of the reasons why it's so amazing.
Well, I wish being at some time being part of a brainstorm session where you have a certain topic you want to create a VR technology around. I think the process is reverse engineering. So you have a certain problem, and then you start thinking reverse engineering how you can solve that with VR technology. How does it work? I'm trying to grasp a little. How does that work? How do you come to creating such an environment that make people who doesn't necessarily recognize the problem when they didn't put it on, then after they put it on, they never can unlearn it anymore?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think at the core of the design is of this experience is, what are the feelings of the victim? Let's call them victims, for the sake of it. They experience situations, and these situations lead to certain emotions, and we want to understand the situations. We want to grasp what are the most common situations they face, and what is the most compelling emotion that you can connect to it. Figuring that out from a lot of stories that experienced experts share with us, those who have faced this this issue share with us, and really understanding what are the most commonly experienced situations and emotions, and trying to recreate that in a VR experience.
Wow. Is there some...
In 15 minutes.
Sorry?
15 minutes. So it's a 15-minute experience. It's like the sweet
yeah,
spot.
But the whole work put into, I was like, in 15 minutes you designed that? No.
Oh, no. In the future, maybe.
Yeah.
Right now it takes longer.
And can you... do you have a certain short... I'm getting curious now. Do you have a certain short list of situations, circumstances people have that you want to develop a solution for?
Yes. There's always this great list that we
I can imagine.
So for this year, top of our list is neurodivergent, and then in specifically autism that we want to develop a solution for. And then there's different scenarios of domestic abuse, because there's also different forms of domestic abuse we want to also be able to touch upon. And besides neurodivergent, there's also the experience of, so we have discrimination, which focuses on the experience of people from a Muslim background, but it touches a lot deeper. The microaggressions you face, they are experienced by anyone from any background. So, but specifically one around what the Black people experience, that is on top of our list for this year as well. Beautiful.
And that also make me think about, you are now at the moment more communicating on LinkedIn, some specific content. Can you tell us a little bit more what is fueling that?
Yes, what is fueling that is, so D&I is one, often misunderstood, and two, it's also weaponized. In this day and age, certainly the conservative parties, they tend to focus on the things that don't work. And there's obviously a lot of things that could be better and could have a different focus, but it's weaponized. They want a certain narrative around the programs, and it's super easy to sway those that are waiting to criticize or challenge initiatives that are there to drive diversity, equity across corporates or communities, and inclusion. How crazy that is. Like, we're also, inclusion is about feeling like you belong for everyone. It's not just migrants. It's also the neurodivergent. It's also this program that we run for the mild intellectually disabled, lichtverstandelijk beperkt.
Yes.
We have a program around that as well. This is also a form, of inclusion, when we want people to be better understood. So it touches basically anyone, but still there are so many that are opposed to it.
Yeah, and you putting it in a sort of almost rebellious way, you making your fist and put it out on LinkedIn, right? So yeah. To make sure that, and it's a sort of every day, or what are you?
Well, it's crazy busy, so I try to do it as often as I get to, but I try to share those things that could show anyone what the programs are actually about, and show that staying true to your D&I initiatives can help companies grow, because eventually it's the people have the power, right? And the people are your consumers. They stand behind these initiatives. And when we also as people try to start to understand our power by, boycotting or supporting those that uphold their initiatives. You've seen it also with the Palestinian movement.
Yes.
A lot of boycotts really impacted a lot of companies. So the people have so much more power than we
do. Than we think we have. I agree totally, and that's why with Journeys of Empowerment we really believe in agency. So in autonomy and in freedom of movement, and so ultimately Journeys of Empowerment will be about your guide. It's about your call to agency. So not call to action, but call to agency. And beautiful. Yes. And Alex, when I look at your background and growing up and so much empathy, but also I can imagine there will be some situations unforeseen, for instance, in traffic or whatever, which although you are very... And you are with a so sweet guy. It's strange from a guy to a guy. A sweet guy. Yes,
appreciate it.
And but really you are. But I can imagine there is also an other side. We all have multiple layers.
Yeah.
And there's always also the other side. I'm from sure I know you. When I push the wrong buttons, you can for sure see also a darker side of us, right? You can see it with me, and you can. And what really, what helps you to stay accountable and being aware of that side of you. And I can imagine also being a parent now. But what helps you? What helps you?
Yeah, so there's this profound moment in my life where I shifted to the calm and collected person I am now today, who has his aggression really under control. There was this indeed traffic moment where I cursed, and I have this filthy mouth to me growing up. So I was cursing at someone. I was so pissed at that moment behind the wheel. And then Mariam, my wife, she really was, pretty touched by the words I was spitting. And she looked at me and she said, imagine that our son or child is... this is years before we would go on to have a child. So she said, imagine our child is on the back seat now. Is this what you want for them to see? Is this what you want them to copy? Because they will copy your behavior. Ooh. And, these things, they run through your head more often, right? But we all have this moment, and that's why I also believe in the work that we do. We all have this moment where it's clear, where it's so vivid, where you can see, I could see my son, I saw a son, sitting in the back seat. And at that moment I realized, no, for the first time, I was so clear that is not what I want for my child. And then after that, there was a process, right? It's not like you stop right away. It's a years long process to get rid of that habit, because it's a habit, right? It's ingrained
pattern.
Yes, as a pattern, and to let go of that took me years. And now it's basically my nature. It's just, we always have our moments.
Of course.
I think the last time I really got aggressive was also behind the wheel when someone... Yeah.
Is there a certain correlation between aggressive and being competitive?
I wouldn't say competitive. I think for me it's always been around, and that's also where it is strongly conditioned within me. It's connected to how do you say it? Onrecht. Injustice. Yeah. Injustice is the one thing that I still, to this day, struggle with. And injustice can be in many ways, right? Behind the wheel, it's like, it's not a justice system behind the wheel. But the way someone treated me was unjust. There was a moment I had to steer, and the person in front of me thought that I was being rude or whatever, but I just was anticipating on a moment because I was forced by another driver. Mm-hmm. And then he comes back to get back at me, right? In a really aggressive way, start braking in front of me. And that's where I snapped. Like, I was like, I will show you some empathy, sir.
Okay. Okay. And so, what prevents you from not doing the wrong thing then? Although you think that, and it makes you think about that, and maybe you steered a little bit in the steering wheel and all those kinds of things. But what happens inside you? Because you got angry, arousal. You have a certain window of tolerance of arousal, and you have your hippo. That's when you get, and you have your hypo, and then this is very hyper.
Yeah, I wish I could say it's a system, but it's just how I function nowadays. So
or is it Mariam at the back of your head? Like, imagine your children. Imagine your children.
He wasn't in the car, so that's why I could let myself go for once. But no, so it's not a system I have in place, but I just managed to calm myself really quickly. And I think more importantly, like when we think about it, so anyone listening to this, maybe even when they struggle next time with children, I think this really helps me. Empathy at the core of every interaction with our children is really what helps me. And it's, as I said, it's not a system. It's just ingrained within me. I think about my son's perspective. For instance, yesterday I was driving home and he was angry at me because I was late home. I promised him I would be at 6, and it was almost 7 p.m.
It's the promise, and it's the result, right? And there was a big difference in between the promise you made, for the second time maybe, or the third time, or again, and then I can imagine.
And I try to make this as vividly as possible. So in the car I'm driving, there's a friend of mine with me who's driving back home. And he's on the speaker and he's screaming. He's really angry with me. So he's screaming and I get a headache. I can imagine my friend is getting a headache. And what my father would do in that moment, he would be, his focus would be on the friend and what he thinks. And it goes through my mind as well, right? So like you're giving him a headache. You're showing him a side of you that I don't want him to see, all these things go through your mind. But my father's focus was always on this. Like he would hit me because someone else was disrespected or might think about this a certain way. My focus was only on, oh my God, this is so sweet. Like he cares so much about me that at this moment he's so mad, he's screaming because I'm late at home. So I started talking to him. I said, Leon, you were really looking forward to me coming home, right? He was like, in the middle of screaming, stopped. Yeah. Oh, that's so sweet. I said, I had no idea, but it was out of my, I didn't mean it to happen.
It wasn't intentional.
I had to. It wasn't intentional. Yeah, it was intentional. You could have chosen, because I had to. It's a long story. I had to drop someone off. Yeah, you chose to drop someone off.
Oh,
I said, yeah, but I thought it was just a few minutes. But then there was traffic, and that's why it's. Yeah, but then you still made the decision, and
7 years.
And I was exactly, and I would just imagine his face, his mind, and how sweet it is that he is connected with me on this level, that half an hour later or almost an hour later makes this impact on him. And I could only be, empathetic. I could only be sweet back because he was being sweet. But we all of us have this tendency, and then I reflect back on how my father would deal, right? So many occasions where what others at that moment would think was more important than
the actual situation, and what made you react like that instead of what made other people think that you react, and that became the thing. But also imagine the profound impact on your son Leon. This example of being angry, really angry, but Daddy really disappointed me, and then that question. You really were looking forward to see me. But I'm angry, And
exactly.
But that moment already profound. I think maybe there should be also a. Maybe I think you have to write a book.
I would love to take some time for that at some point.
Yeah, at some point. No, but when it comes to and why a book, but to describe those kind of situations, that because in everything what you say, you help other people really see and understand what you're trying to achieve with empathy. Everything is ingrained in empathy, and I think. Yeah, that's now I understand even better why it's not Enliven only. No, it's Enliven Empathy. It's all about the empathy and breaking resistance through empathy. It's
appreciate how you phrase that.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. And hey, we're heading a little bit towards the end, and we can talk for hours.
Yep.
Alex, you came from so far, and if you look back, I have two questions. What are you most proud of? One or two things. What are you most proud of?
It's certainly breaking the cycle of violence for my family, number one. Besides the work that we're doing at Enliven and the impact that we have, for me, the first thing was giving my family a healthy, loving, violence-free life. So that's by far the most important thing to me.
Yeah, putting your family first. This is by far the most profound, deep. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's also I'm proud of it because through it I hope also to help others. I know how super difficult it is. I see a lot of people around me still struggle with this. So eventually I want to also have more time to make an impact on this specific subject, because preventing children from domestic abuse is one of the most important things that touches my personal mission.
Yes.
It has such a profound impact on so many levels, right? Someone at the police force, when we just started working on a topic, he told me that science shows between 30 and 40% of adults struggling with drug abuse, criminality, everything you can imagine, all kinds of trouble you can imagine, struggles in life, they come from an abusive household growing up. 30 to 40%. So preventing children from going through that and living healthy lives is one of the most key things. There's another example of how empathy, the importance of empathy. So in having this loving family for my son makes him like this sweetest child as well, right? So yeah, he loves watching Spider-Man, but that's all he knows from actual fighting. Going to school, he's the most sweetest child, and at some point he came to me and he said, this kid had grabbed him by his neck and pushed him to the wall. And there was some instances before that where he would tell me that he was hit, or and we had spoken to the teachers. They did nothing. So, and that crossed all lines for me. Being the violent person that I was, the first thing that goes to my mind is, I'm going to teach this kid.
Of course, it's a feeling.
But what I did instead was the complete opposite. I went and give the child love, all the love you can imagine. Like I would play with him, and my wife was kind of mad at me about it. He was like, we went there, we were playing football, but you were only playing with him instead of your own son. I was like, don't you understand what I'm doing? I was getting close to that kid, and I became friends with him, at the level that you can be.
Yeah, of course.
He really liked me, and we boxed each other, and every time I would see him, I would give him a high five. Long story short, he stopped. After that incident, he stopped, and now they're friends. He comes over to my home. He was at my son's birthday a few weeks ago.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I can imagine that not only Mariam had the sort of feeling from, hey, what's happening here? But also the first reaction from Leon. What was the first reaction from Leon, seeing his daddy trying to become friends with his biggest enemy at that moment?
Yeah.
How was that for him? Because, yeah.
I had told him that was the approach.
Oh, okay.
I had told him that was the approach, and then after the situation, I went to him and I explained the whole thing. And I said to him, he doesn't have a fine home like you have, which is why he started, when he's hit, he goes to school and hits others. That is what's going on. He's actually a victim. So I explained him this and told him that that's why I gave him love instead of being another person in his life who punishes him. And he understood.
Wow. Other question I had is if there was one advice to give to the, well, let's say 20-year younger you, what would that be? With all the knowledge and all the breakthroughs, pivotal moments, growth you've been through, with the knowledge of now, what would be the advice to the 20-year younger you?
Yeah, I think that one is a really difficult one, because eventually I wish I would have gone through this process just sooner, right? I've had moments that I was full of hatred, right? When I think it was between the age of 22 and 25, I was full of hatred for the world, how I was treated, for those who I found led to me being treated this way as someone carrying a Muslim name. So I had a lot of hatred within me. And I had to understand my past. I had to understand the world better to grow. And I think also on that level, I've grown so much. Understand all perspectives, not just mine, not just the perspectives that media portrays. Really understanding all perspectives turns me to the person that I am today, where I'm at peace with everything and everyone. I feel like I'm on this journey to help others to get to that same state, right? Because also those that are perpetrators of a non-inclusive corporate environment, or the perpetrators of domestic abuse, they're like me back then. They're struggling, and they need something to open their minds up, show them how the world could be, and grab them by their hands and show them the road to being fulfilled, happy, in love, and able to cherish everyone from any background.
Yep. And if I'm trying to distill the advice that probably is in there, what you just said, is it maybe about, hey buddy, the younger you, you talking to your 20-year younger you, hey buddy, trust that there are different perspectives, or trust that sometimes it's different than it feels, how it feels like, or trust. Is there a certain element of I would say it's not.
Yeah. I would say it's not you.
No,
it's not you. You are not the problem.
That's wow. Well, I think that's, in short, that's the advice. Or you're not necessarily the problem, or only the problem, or you're not the problem. Wow, Alex, thank you very much for this deep dive conversation. We to end up with some lightness.
Yes, thank you for having me on this beautiful podcast. And
I'm looking forward to push this one out.
All right.
Thank you.
I look forward to being here again at some time.
I will. Oh, and one thing, when people, I can only imagine a lot of people are who don't know you and don't know Enliven Empathy. We will for sure put something in the show notes that they can find you personally. So I think they can reach out via LinkedIn, I assume. And,
yes.
And also the company information, because this needs to be pushed out to the whole world.
Yes, Enliven Empathy, schedule a demo, experience it for yourself. You'll be amazed. And connect with me, Alex Tavassoli, Tava.
Yes.
And looking forward to connecting with all of you.
All right, Betty, here we go. Thank you very much. Before we wrap up, I want to spotlight a mission that speaks straight to the heart. On the 1st of June, my friend and fellow Marine, Robin Intorn, begins Mission Kiev, a 2,000 kilometer speed march from The Hague to Kiev. Why? To send a clear message to Ukrainian veterans. You're not alone. Because while the war in Ukraine still rages on, for many the hardest battles are also happening within, in their minds, their bodies, and their everyday lives. Robin knows that reality intimately. Every kilometer he walks represents €50, which goes directly toward trauma-informed training for Ukrainian therapists, educators and caregivers, working with veterans and families. This is more than a challenge. It's a statement. It's a solidarity in motion. If this speaks to you, you'll find a link to support Mission Kiev in the episode notes. Even one step makes a difference. Because trauma may be silent, but healing should never be.